Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so Avery Johnson got me fired up, man, in a very positive way about this Los Angeles Laker team. I just got to listen to him, and what he was saying is essentially the defense that he saw us play against the Memphis Grizzlies in Game 6 could win us the entire championship. He feels like we are the front runners to come out of the Western Conferences of this point. The odds makers got us slightly behind Phoenix, and Phoenix is slightly behind Denver in their series. So I like our odds right now if we do what we're supposed to do. Here's the thing: if we play the Warriors, maybe this works in our favor. If we play the Sacramento, maybe it doesn't. But the schedule has just come out for next week's games. Even though we don't know who we play, we know when we play. Starting on the 2nd, we play every 2 days. So it's the 2nd, and then from there on. And so we just got to be ready for no rest. It's essentially what I'm saying. This is the most rest the Lakers are going to get right now. And, it's just one of those situations where the less basketball we play, the better in a positive way. Obviously, we don't want to get swept, but, we want to get advantage in the series that we're in. We're favored to win the series that we're about to be in, regardless of who we play. That's already been established by the odds makers. If you look at what's going on there, they already got us beating both of those teams, or either one rather. So that doesn't mean we necessarily will. A lot of things have to happen in order for that to take place. But the bottom line is, our rosters are constructed to have the advantage on paper. It's essentially what I'm saying to you. So if we utilize our roster correctly and stay healthy, got a good chance. Got a good chance, LA. And so, as a fan of the LA Lakers, I gotta say I'm very proud of how they responded to the Memphis Grizzlies overall. When you really consider how we looked in that series, Game 2, Game 5, even parts of Game 4, to be honest with you, we didn't look all that wonderful. But when we needed to dominate, especially on the end, boy, did we dominate. And Anthony Davis' defense, even though great defense was played against him, I mean, they were able to neutralize him a bit offensively. Defensively, he was so spectacular. It wasn't minor by any stretch of the imagination. And as long as he keeps playing like this, honestly, excuse me, we really are favored to beat most people. And if he's playing this way defensively, there aren't any teams left that could really play defense like this. This is essentially what Avery was saying. It's not many in the Western Conference, that is. I mean, you got to respect what can go on in the East. But with Milwaukee being gone and Joel with a knee, that's half of the Eastern Conference, in terms of what most people thought would be coming out right there. So if it ain't going to be Boston, who could it be? You know what I mean? And of course, who I'd say the answer is. It's New York. But, that's I think I'm the only person who's not going to be caught off guard by the New York Knicks at all if they come out of the Eastern Conference. At this point, I think they got a real chance. It's between them and the Celtics in my mind, but you can't underestimate the Heat's upset possibility in that series, especially with Jimmy playing the way he is. And if Jimmy keeps on trucking along like some biblical character, don't be surprised if he takes his team to the Eastern Conference. He got them to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, so why couldn't he do it again? He's the same exact teammates, only they're missing Tyler Hero. But you know, I don't think they can beat the Knicks, to be honest with you. I really don't. But we just got to see that thing play itself out. But at the end of the day, when I look at us, and I'll zero back to what's going on in the Western Conference, the point is, we may be the best team left already. We may be the best team left already. Milwaukee getting beat in the first round might have been the greatest thing for any team that had a puncher's chance winning a championship, because they were the only team that people thought really couldn't be beaten, with Giannis just being an unstoppable force. But as we know, injuries are robbing us of some of the best basketball this season, and so far that is the story of these playoffs. Injuries more than anything else. Guys are going down with injuries. Guys are playing through injuries. And whoever wins the championship is likely going to be injured to some degree. So that's going to be the thing. Who's going to be able to play through injury, or who's going to be able to stay healthy, most importantly. And I just think that my theory, when you look at that truth, holds up even further about the teams that are deeper and the teams that are more willing to use more players are ultimately going to be the ones that will be able to withstand all of that. Who have more productive players will be able to withstand all of that just by sheer nature. You know what I mean? So you don't have, when your players are removed, players that are no good. You know, so this is why I'm so hell bent on talking that way in this camera, because I know it's the essence of all of what it is that we're looking at. And as we see shallow teams get picked off, or teams that don't have very strong benches go deep into series because they keep getting attacked in certain ways that they can't seem to knock off with ease, you can understand that, you know, it may end up being a team that's very deep, like the Lakers, or like the Sacramento Kings, or like the Knicks. Teams that truly do have a lot of players that they use in rotation regularly, that ultimately produce a lot for them, that will help them win in the end. So we'll see if it plays out that way. But right now, that theory is looking pretty solid right now. It really is. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I encourage everybody to go check out my Philadelphia 76ers Celtic breakdown, because I was breaking down what I thought could be an interesting series there, even though Joel Embiid could potentially be missing for a game or two. Now that could now be a bit longer depending on what they're saying in regards to his knee. So we'll keep our ears open for that. But his status is really all over the place as it pertains to that knee. It is not sounding positive, is what I will say to all of you guys. And that's about as far as I can say. So with him being removed, it makes them a much smaller team. But in playing small, I think they could potentially have some advantages if they're able to overcome some very tough defensive players, you know, that are coming against them. So that's really what it comes down to. If the Boston Celtics defense falters for any reason at all, that could give the Sixers a strong puncher's chance to extend the series, even if Joel ain't out there. You're talking about James Harden, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and all those guys. So that's just something I don't want to continue to go back to that. But it really does come down to sometimes small ball really does work if you use the right players for it. You have the right amount of energy there. And I see that in Philadelphia when I look at their team on paper. I just see unsung amounts of energy. So, you know, the reason why Philadelphia is so intriguing to me as a Laker fan is because I'm not really certain if we can beat the Philadelphia 76ers if Joel Embiid is at 100%. I'm not certain. They're the team that I look at and say, I don't know in that particular matchup if I love us. Now, the way that we've been playing these last couple of games, I hadn't been thinking about it since then. But, you know, just in general, I just didn't love the matchups. But if Anthony Davis' defense is going to play like this, maybe he can be very disruptive to him. And so that would amend a lot of what it is I'm thinking about in regards to that matchup. But, you know, it's just certain situations that I think the Lakers would rather avoid. And playing one of those super monster players like Joel or Giannis is pretty much one of them. With Giannis being out, like I said, that's what really sparked the thought to begin with. But if Joel's going down too, that makes things even more interesting there. I look at Jokic and I'm trying to tell myself that, you know, it's very important not to look at him as anything less than one of those guys. You know, because it's very easy to overlook him because of the way that his team is constructed. But honestly, he's hell-bent on proving that he's not what it is that we think he is. Jamal Murray just the same. I was listening to those guys and they were essentially saying, well, Jamal Murray specifically, he was saying to the TNT dudes, like, you know, how many times do I have to do this for you guys to believe in my game, you know, and to believe in my health? And so that's what it really comes down to. As we talk about him on this camera, you guys know I don't think of him as anything short than a killer out there. He's already proven himself. Him and Donovan Mitchell several years back with their playoff performance, they, you know, put their names in the history books right there. So as far as BDF 44, Jamal Murray don't have to prove nothing to me. I get it. I'm on board. It's one of those situations where I'm just waiting on your condition to come back around. So Now that it's here, I take you very seriously, and I think the Los Angeles Lakers should as well. The Denver Nuggets, obviously involved right there, should as well. Excuse me, the Phoenix Suns. But it just comes down to a situation where, since we're looking at them, that first game, that's not really surprising to me. Because at the end of the day, Phoenix has to deal with the altitude to start the series. And not only that, but they really aren't a very deep team. So that's really what it comes down to. They're going to have their disadvantages against the Denver Nuggets. But what people are going to come to find out is that Denver is not much deeper than Phoenix. They're really not. So when you look at both of those teams, you understand that both of them are going to be dealing with foul trouble situations where they're going to be exposing that bench. And if any of them have any injuries of any kind, that will further expose their benches. I do like Denver's a bit more. To be honest with you, I just see a bit. Well, that's the thing. When I looked at it on paper, I'm like, well, Phoenix actually did have a few more players that they use that I think can be productive on a regular basis. But the thing about Phoenix is that they don't tend to use those players when I see them play. They tend to let those guys sit a bit more than some of the other guys that I think are a little less productive. So it gets a little strange there for me with Phoenix. But they're capable of putting players on the floor that I think can do some good things for them if they utilize them in a good way. But they're so hell-bent on playing only 5 and 6 people there in Phoenix. It's just not really going to keep KD and Booker healthy in my mind. That's what it really comes down to. You're asking for it, especially going in up and down at an altitude. It's a lot. Excuse me. So I picked Phoenix in 7 overall, only because I believe that Kevin Durant and Devin Booker ultimately pose such an incredible puzzle to try to overcome defensively. And I just don't look at Denver as a very good defensive team to begin with. So it's just going to come down to who's more efficient from score to score to score. And I ultimately came down to Devin Booker and KD being the ones that are going to shoot them down. But just as I told you guys when I broke it down, Jamal Murray throws a monkey wrench in all of this, because if he's going to play at his best, he will send you home. If you're not absolutely ready to outduel him, he can win the game at the end. And so I look at him as somebody who will probably do that in this series or any other series he's in. And you got to try to keep a lead and some distance between you and Denver when playing against that guy. So Phoenix doesn't really have the weapons outside of KD and Booker. So, as I've been saying in a lot of these videos I've been making today and yesterday as well, you got to win games on the road when you don't have home court advantage. It is an emphasis for your strategy in your series to get the game that you need to win on the road out of the way early. That way you're not forced to by the end of the series when uncertain things can be real to you at that moment. Injuries, mismatches that have been figured out, players that have broken out later on in the series, all different types of stuff that will force you to win on the road in whatever circumstances they will be. And so for me, it's like, nah, let's get that out the way early. Jump on this team early, snatch one in their home at all costs. I play game 1 and game 2 like they're game 6 and 7 with urgency. And with doing so, you will strategize yourself in a great position to be a little more comfortable as home court advantage is given to you early on in the series. That way, and there's a good chance your closeout game will be in your series, in your house, if you somewhat dominate winning at home throughout the series. So that's how I see it. That's the position these teams are in. And, I'm curious to see if Phoenix is going to try to get this game too. And if they don't, I have a hard time seeing them win the series, to be honest with you. Even though they say a whole lot doesn't really happen until the road team wins. But honestly, this is a situation where you don't want to drop those two early games in altitude, because at the end of the day, if they're only running a couple of people, then they're just going to get worn down as the series progresses. So they're going to need the series to end early. And without home court advantage, having dropped this first game, that doesn't look likely. So the longer this stretches out, the more difficult it will be for Phoenix, it seems, unless they expand their bench and find something out of some of those guys that they don't expect to get anything from. So I look at that and I say, you can probably get away with it, because at the end of the day, Denver's going to have to play some of those guys too. That's what it really comes down to. But if they're just going to try to run 7 versus 7 versus one another throughout 7 games, that could be a thing. But they're just going to wear each other down and have to expose those back of the bench players to each other anyway. As to which we're going to see some very interesting playoff games. And that's what's interesting to me as well. For these teams that think they're going to run these 7 versus 7s, those guys can get in foul trouble. Even if they're durable enough to do it, you're still going to have to show some of that bench eventually. And so the thing in my mind is to just embrace guys' weaknesses and strengths in these pressured moments. Because even if they're out there doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, the guys who are going to get them out of that hole are staying fresher for you. So when they get back out there, the risk is that they're out of rhythm, but the reward is that they're rested and ready to go. So I do think that trusting your so-so bench in the playoffs can be a poison pill if the other team is going on a run and stuff like that. But if you rotate properly, you should be fine. Like, I really believe that for those who want to shorten their bench, it can be a net negative. But overall, throughout the course of 7 games, it'll just mean for stronger legs in overtime games that you're probably going to be forced to play anyway, in my theory. And if you rotate properly, you'll have a great player on the floor anyway. A lot of these teams have enough talent to make that make sense. So I just wonder if Phoenix has it right here. You know what I mean? I don't know. Asking Chris Paul to play like 37 minutes in Denver altitude. Yeah. Not to say that I checked the minutes. I have no idea if that's accurate, but this is just an example of what you're doing when you only run 7 players. You know what I mean? So could have been more, could have been less, but I'd imagine it's somewhere around there. And he's the X factor, by the way. As you guys know, if you've heard me break this down before, I do think that him getting open jump shots, if he can be accurate with those, can really create a dynamic that opens up things for KD and Booker. And I do believe that can be a bit of a problem for the Denver Nuggets as the series progresses, because I really don't look at their team as a team full of defenders. They got some really good defenders, but I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome the type of talent that's coming at them in that way. Because it's not going to really be about man to man. It's going to be more about who do you pick your poison, basically, with that offense. So efficiency is key, and we can see how Booker is playing with KD out there. It's sort of like Steph Curry and the type of space that Steph was able to create with. I mean, you can't let a guy like that who's that gifted have that much, space to create. And with a target like KD down there that must be doubled and triple teamed and all different types of defenses to just try to slow him down, Booker's able to do whatever he wants. And I think that as they continue to see Denver over and over again, they're just going to figure it out. That's what I end up thinking. That's what I end up seeing taking place there in my mind. Is even though they've dropped this first game, Booker and KD are just going to continue to see these guys and learn what it is that they're throwing at them. And like I said, Denver's not a very good defense. And when that becomes the case, even though Murray's going crazy and Jokic is likely picking them apart with every possession, if Denver does not find a way to slow those two down, they're just going to pick them apart every possession, man. I'm telling you, that's what it really comes down to. So, yeah, Phoenix dropped the first game. And Denver may be slightly deeper than them, but I don't know if my initial thought in regards to the 7th game being the Suns' win is something I'm ready to waver from just because they lost this game. I think not. If I thought these were going to be games they won all outright, I would not let this go to 7 in my mind. This thing goes 7. So they definitely going to be losing some games. The first one is one of them, but I think ultimately they're going to take game 2. I think Phoenix is probably going to split the series, and then they're probably going to go back home, probably split that too with Denver. Because Denver is tough, man. They play a strong brand of basketball, but I just do not believe in everything that they have. And if they expose their bench, they're going to lose any leads that they have, man. And that's another thing about that series that's very interesting to me. The 14-point lead that Denver had tonight, Jamal Murray was able to shoot them into a position where they had that lead expand. And I was able to watch some of that game, not all of it. But a lead like that, to me, in this series, it can be erased in moments. Moments, especially if a team is turning the ball over. Because a guy like KD and a guy like Booker, 14-point deficit, they can erase that very, very quickly. So the key for Denver is to try to deny those guys deny them. You got to try to keep them from catching the ball and make somebody else beat you. That's what Denver must do. And throw different looks at these guys at all times. Do not let them see the same thing more than once, basically. And so it's I'm telling you, when I say it's going to be hard for Denver to win this series, it's going to be hard for Denver to win this series. Now, the hope for Denver is that they can just ease by and get these 2 early victories at home. Obviously, try to get a 3rd victory there, and then just have such an advantage that it's likely just going to demoralize Phoenix. You know what I mean? That's what you want if you're Denver. But the way I see it, the best, even further best bet for Denver is probably trying to target foul trouble, as I always say, but trying to wear them down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You want to wear down KD, you want to wear down Booker, especially if they're only going to go 7 deep. So yeah, that's really what it is, man. I like that series a lot. Only because I see efficiency is really key there. Both sides have highly, highly efficient players shooting the basketball. So you could potentially see some very special things because neither one of them really played amazing defense. You know what I mean? So it's just going to be an offensive juggernaut of a series. But the problem that they're both running into is the lack of depth in their propensity to run those 7, 8 players. So will it work out for these 2 teams? Not if they don't learn to trust other people. Not if they don't learn to trust some of them guys on the back of that dang bench. And they have to play well when they do. So I don't think either is likely, to be honest with you. And because of it, I don't think either of those teams are going to win anything this year. But that stands very, very well for my belief in my very own team. Which is why I really don't think I'm a front runner when I say the Lakers look like the best team in the Western Conference. I don't believe I'm a front runner when I say that. And the only reason why I think we're that good is because I look at Sacramento and I say Sacramento's getting beat up real bad by Golden State. They're getting beat up real bad by Golden State. I look at the shiner that Sabonis has. I look at the thumb injury. I look at, Fox's injury. Like they've been through the mud. And so I just think that those little injuries can kind of even up the score with whatever concern I thought that they posed against us, which is why I always want certain teams to just kind of face somebody else before they see us. It's not that I don't want to face the Sacramento King. It's just I didn't want to see them in the first round. Let somebody else be physical with them. Let them get beat up a little bit, and then they run into our guys. And to a point, we got beat up a little bit too in that Memphis series. So we would be wise to try to manage our guys in that way. Try to play less basketball, as I always say. But all in all, you look at the Lakers and the defense that they're able to play, and then you couple that with the ability to score like we can. I don't know of 2 teams that can really do that. Who else defends like the Lakers but can also put up 125 points? The only other team is the New York Knicks. That's the only team I can think of who can do that. And maybe the Boston Celtics, but I honestly don't know if the Boston Celtics play that brand of defense. And then I would say the Golden State Warriors, but the Golden State Warriors defense comes and goes. That's the problem with them. Well, one day they're clamping you down, another day they just giving up layups. So I really don't know who the Golden State Warriors are this season, especially when you consider that they just dropped that Game 6 in the way that they did. Nobody saw that coming after the Game 5 win. So they're just a Jekyll and Hyde team, and I don't trust them this year, even though they have obviously legendary players that are obviously trustworthy. You know, it just comes down to, for whatever reason, this group that they have this year just has some really, really glaring tendencies that just really hurt them. And so, can they overcome them? Maybe so. But when you look at the way Anthony Davis is playing defense, probably no. You know, that's the reality of it. And I don't know if I'm saying that from a Lakers fan's perspective or just somebody who's looking at the two rosters and the two tendencies of the two teams. And I just say, the Lakers, you know, as I follow them so closely, that team just has issues with helping itself. You know, trying to figure out who they want to use and when, trying to get up for certain games, staying healthy, you know. But the type of weaknesses that I think the team actually has on the basketball floor, I really haven't really seen them. I think we expose those weaknesses by way of what we do, but I think we can basically shore up everything that the Lakers have seen thrown at them. You know, every once in a while, a team will get really, really hot from behind the arc, and I don't think we can do so much about that, to be honest with you. But anything that comes in the paint, not really a problem. Since we picked up these kids, I don't think there's anybody on the perimeter that we can't scheme a way to at least stifle a little, slow them down, you know, with respect to how talented a lot of these guards are. I think some of these combo dudes like Jaylen Brown, you know, the Bradley Beal type of players tend to give us problems. But since we're so good defensively in other areas, we're able to defeat their teams even though they go off against us. It's what we saw with Desmond Bane. So it's like, that's kind of a recipe for success for us. And sometimes we just have to let them dudes go and stifle everything else and find ourselves in ways to you know, beat them anyway. And so what I'm telling you is, yeah, there are teams out there who could probably be put together to beat the Lakers, or maybe some teams that are not in these playoffs that are constructed to attack us just right. But I don't know if any team really honestly looks better than this Laker team, man. I really don't know. I don't know. You know, I'm not certain that there is a team that I would pick to beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. Now, there are things that could get the Lakers beat in a 7-game series for sure. We've seen those things. You know, as I tell everybody, the Lakers can be beat by anybody if the Lakers don't strategize properly, or if Anthony Davis don't show up and Bron James want to shoot threes all night, brick them all, turn the ball over. I mean, there are a lot of things the Lakers do that will get them beat, which is why I don't just think that we're just going to go out and dominate and win the championship like that. I didn't pick us, but, you know, every team is flawed. You got to look at our team and say, okay, that's one of our flaws, but look at everybody else and say, who's perfect? If you start picking apart all the teams that are out there, they have flaws that are even deeper than that. So it's like, if nobody's perfect, and that's really one of the only problems the Lakers have, I mean, why can't we go out there with a championship? You know? When I look at the Sacramento Kings, I think they're a legitimate threat. You know, that's a team that I pay a lot of respect to right now in the Western Conference, just because there are a lot of people are picking us to beat them, and I too have us beating them. There are a whole lot of ways that series can go south for us, especially with De'Aaron Fox being as clutch and as dominant as he is. But we have the players that we can throw at him to make life very difficult for him. And I think over the course of a series, you know, we can figure some things out there. I really believe that. So, you know, just looking ahead at the possibilities, and with Golden State, we've had such success against them that there's evidence and data to show us that we can continue to do that this season, this off season. But the problem is, I said off season and meant postseason. That's the problem. But nevertheless, the issue that I see there is getting caught up in believing that, and then going forward and thinking you can go against him Not taking into account that GP2 is in better shape. Wiggins is back and healthy. And it's playoff time, and those guys have won a championship, so they're coming at you with a higher level of intensity. Coupled with the fact that they've been playing a fast-paced Sacramento Kings team, so they're going to be ready for our fast pace, and we'll be coming at us with defense to offense just like we're coming at them. And they rebound better than people give them credit for. So, yeah, Golden State ain't, it's not like I don't respect what they can do, but I just feel like they have more to worry about than we do. When you look at what Anthony Davis is doing out there defensively, they have to shoot 50% from behind the arc to beat us every night, and I just don't know if they can string together 4 games like that. 4 games? Steph Curry is amazing, but it's going to take more than just an amazing night to get us in a 7-game series. And while I expect him to have multiple amazing nights against us, 4 of them is going to be tough with the defense that we're capable of playing. And, with players like Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, I mean, we're just going to be very, very efficient against their efficiency. And that's something that's going to frustrate them. So I like us against both of those teams. I also think it's very difficult to beat both of those teams. Very, very difficult. And we're going to need Darvin Ham to be very, 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 very intent on listening to his coaching staff and everybody who advises him on how best to rotate the team and how best to make adjustments and how quickly those adjustments should be made. Because against the champs, I know better than to think that we're going to be at any advantage coaching-wise. That's Steve Kerr. We know better. So we're going to have to help one another and do what makes sense out there as a team. And I think the Lakers will be able to, see the greatest level of itself out there against the champs. That's what doing things properly, I think, can result in. So, I appreciate everybody for allowing me to talk about my squad on this video. I don't know where I wanted to take this, so I guess I'll turn this into a Laker/NBA chat video as I always do. But there's so much more to talk about as well, and I appreciate the ability to do so. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there, man. You know what I'm saying? I think everybody's had enough of my voice for this particular video. But you know what? All in all, just to sum up everything we've been talking about, these playoffs have been great, and I just want to see continued consistency from the officiating. That's where I want to end that. Continued consistency from the officiating, because what I've seen is them allowing for more physicality, less whistles, less fouls. I don't hate it. I think the players do, but I don't, so long as it stays consistent. Because at the end of the day, you want free-flowing basketball. And a lot of times these guys are jumping out there just looking to jump around and flop and all of that, and I just think it makes for worse basketball, even though they've gotten used to it, and it is a strategy at this point. In playoff basketball, you want to see skills win, you want to see strategies win. You really don't want to see that type of strategy ultimately tell the story. And so I see the officials are trying to eliminate some of that. They're trying not to get caught by some of those flops and all of those things. And so I just want to continue to encourage the league to encourage them to do that. Let's not get caught up in the flopping so much. Do call the contact if you see it and they exaggerate it. Do call it, but some of those flops are no good. Also, there's something that we've benefited from as a Laker fan, as a team, rather a certain thing that we do, and there's a lot of teams doing this as well, but I think it's very dangerous. When we allow for last second charging plays underneath the basket. Some of these dudes like Ja Morant, with the velocity and the height that they're jumping with, it just makes for a very bad angle for them coming down when a guy's able to step in front of them last minute as they're reaching their apex in mid-air. Usually if a guy's outside of the cylinder, if not always, it would be a charge, and that's why guys do it. But it is so very dangerous for those guys in mid-air, and it can get a lot worse with how they land if we don't eliminate that from our game. So that's just something I want to say right now. some of these athletes, they just jump a little too high. They're a little too athletic for people to be stepping in front of them last minute, catching them like that. And so that needs to be eliminated. That's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. Out.